Hello guys and welcome to the third episode of the Lazy Plonk series. Today we will be talking about Thailand, which is a pretty huge country, and as you might know, most of the signs in the country are not in Latin script. They're using Thai symbols, which are pretty hard to read unless you study them. So very often when you find yourself in Thailand, you have no idea where to plonk. Also, with the upcoming season, where we will have no move and no move pen or zoom duels, it makes it pretty interesting to check where you should send your guess if you just know that it's Thailand, but you don't know much else. As you can see on the street view, Thailand is pretty well covered overall. We have some gaps next to the border of Myanmar, but other than that, it's pretty uniformly covered. So it is a pretty nice country for our algorithms that we used in the previous two parts, Indonesia and Denmark. So we want to determine a point where it would be optimal to send a guess and maximize expected points. Unless you, of course, realize that you are in a big city, for example, in Bangkok, and you see some text, then of course you send there. But we are making an assumption that you really don't know where you are and that you have very little info, like no road number and so on. For example, in an NMPZ setting, you just recognize that it's Thailand and that's it. So to perform our analysis, we, as usual, obtained a very high resolution map. As you can see, after converting from a vector format, we got roughly 7,000 pixels on the longer dimension, and we converted it to a PNG format. And as usual, we started selecting candidate points many times, and for each candidate points, we selected 5,000 potential locations that could be the answer, and we tested the score that you would get in GeoGuessr if you plonked that particular point. So after 5,000 trials on each point, we aggregated the averages and we looked at the 100 best points first of all in solos, and then we repeated the analysis for pairs of points. So we determined 100 best pairs of points that people can use in duos. For the solos, the results are pretty straightforward, even though usually I see people just plonking Bangkok. Apparently, it's optimal to plonk more in the middle of the country, and this way you kind of hedge what if it's closer to Cambodia or what if it's closer to Chiang Mai. So as you can see, we had more than 4 million candidate points, and each candidate point was tested 5,000 times. And on average, if you use this point, you get slightly above 4,000 GeoGuessr points. Like your score is slightly above 4,000. And this point actually makes a lot of sense. It's kind of the middle, the middle ground between Cambodian border, between Chiang Mai and Bangkok, and also not criminally far from this southern part, which people often forget about, but it's kind of important. However, when we are playing duos with my brother, we often struggle. Like we don't know where to plonk, so usually one of us goes next to Chiang Mai and the other one tries to hedge at the same time Bangkok and Cambodian border direction. But apparently, when we ran the algorithm with almost 4 million candidate points, apparently it's optimal to hedge the southern part of the country. Even though, admittedly, it's slightly less covered, as you can see here, the density is absolutely mind-blowing next to Bangkok, whereas on the peninsula, we see that there are some gaps and overall the coverage is not so dense. However, I'm pretty sure that Phuket is pretty nicely covered, and also this part next to a Malaysian border, it is covered in all common maps on GeoGuessr, including a community vault, and I think the general vault map also has multiple locations there. And it's probably important to not forget about that southern part of the map. So our algorithm suggests that one person plonks slightly more to the north compared to the solo plonk, as you can see when I'm switching. Whereas the second player tries to hedge the area around Phuket and the southern part in general. This way, you maximize the expected points in team duels, and on average, using such a Plonk, you would get around 4,200 points, so slightly better than in solos. It's a bit surprising. I expected that we would have like 1 point around Chiang Mai and one closer to the border with Cambodia, but apparently, if a point is in the southern part of the country, it punishes way too much, having these two very northern guesses. Again, this test is valid if you believe that the country is more or less evenly covered. If you have any knowledge about which regions are better represented and so on, that would be much appreciated. Please do share with us. But if we assume that the country is more or less evenly covered, then these are the two optimal points that you should use. And we have been using the 2 points from Denmark that were suggested by the analysis, and they have been working very nicely for us. So we consistently get like the same high score pretty much every time. So at least for Denmark, the algorithm works very nicely. From now on, we will start testing Thailand algorithm. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully this video is helpful for you, and please don't hesitate to share any ideas, suggestions, improvements, and suggest the next country for us to check. And I'll see you in the next video.